Always strange because you always know how people react to you, and you always see how other people look, but I've always found it very strange. You can never really tell exactly how you look looking in the mirror. It's like everything else. When we look at, I don't know, when we look at ourselves, we don't see what other people see. I guess it's, you know, you live with something all your life, you get used to seeing it. I think the precept of this film is how we see ourselves and how we feel that others see us. One of the things that I've experienced myself is that I'm always changing, and in that I'm always changing, my outward image is always changing, evolving, becoming something different. I never like to do anything that I'm not sure of why I'm doing it.
I guess the thing that I was concentrating most on when I was seeing myself is remembering what I was thinking when you were, filming me, because I was thinking about you were filming me when you were filming me. Yeah, I wouldn't say like a facade or pretending or whatever, but just sort of making things seem appropriate somehow, and the way I wanted to present myself, I suppose, for your project. So, at any rate, it seemed kind of funny to me. Particularly the association with the cigarette, which seems to be a constant, even when I'm recording. Which I suppose is fair enough, considering how many cigarettes I consume. I've been plagued with a real sort of sinister self-analysis, and have gotten to the point now where I think that, to get heavy, I think that possibly I'm, one sort of omniscient self that manipulates different sort of, I don't want to use the word like puppet or something like that, because I don't want to make it seem that that sinister, although I did describe it as sinister earlier, but just that I seem to sometimes do things for the sake of, that particular character I'm manifesting, keeping constant, or something that's like a television, rather than really think about some of the decisions I make and stuff like that. And then later on, I think in retrospect, I'm pretty good. But sometimes I get a little too caught up in the environment and the appearance of things, rather than what might really be best or worst or the most appropriate in a more objective sense, I guess. I always thought that I was misunderstood, and that a lot of people intimidated me for no good cause, or they didn't understand my feelings about something. They probably didn't think I was as sensitive as I was, and all that other stuff. But lately, I've come to enjoy that sometimes, and probably come off as a jerk a lot, maybe, or maybe a little too aggressive or hard. Well, maybe that's not what I really think. I think sometimes I put people off, and other times I don't. More than most people probably would, or I probably think of it more than most people would probably say it about themselves. And I think it's true. And I think sometimes I can go through fits of real sort of pleasantries and niceties and all those other things, and be really sort of I'm not thinking of the right word to use. I think it's a martyr complex sometimes, is that I like to sort of sacrifice myself for people and things, even when it's the most, sort of inconsequential something. And then I'll hate them for letting me do that later on. But it'll pass. I'm probably nicer than I am emotionally maladjusted. And I think I'm better about it now. I have I have a goody idea about who I am and the way I feel about things. And I suppose self-analysis is good, since I don't spend a lot of time listening to music in the dark at a slower speed than it should be played. And I never get too down about, whether or not I'm doing the right thing or projecting the right image or whatever. But lately, I've gotten really comfortable, I wouldn't say more independent, but less, less hungry for approval from every, person. I've learned, I guess, to judge and I don't know. Just there's people that I don't, care what they see about me because I don't think there's any point to it, I suppose. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it probably sounds ridiculous, or not ridiculous, but it probably sounds, I don't know, cold and unfeeling, and I'm not cold and unfeeling, and that's what I want everybody to know about me. I'm not so much interested in how people see me. I'm more interested in how I see myself. Now, this comes naturally to me. This is the way I usually express myself, and I'm always just, ready to answer something. Instead of hyperactive, probably intense, and the people who end up, not being put off by me, I suppose, probably because, like I described earlier, they come off hard, are intense themselves, I suppose, or work, probably thinking about a lot of things themselves, I guess. Not that people have to be deep philosophers or whatever, but just working towards something, just aggressively, I suppose.
Yes, I think people expect me to be more normal than I actually am. Because you can tell I was constantly thinking about something. I'm very obsessive anyway. I'm an obsessive thinker, so I think you show that side of me. I think people think I'm more dizzy than I actually am. When people first meet me, they do think that I'm younger. I even got carded at the movie theater about 2 years ago, meaning I was 22 years old. And I had to go home and get my ID. One point when we were filming, I was really in angst about something. I've never really seen myself like that, so that was interesting. Okay. I got kicked out of school, or expelled from school, because we had a state graduation test, and I failed to take the test because I overslept. And once you're over a certain amount of hours, they dismiss you from school because you sign a contract, although I didn't realize I'd signed the contract. So anyway, I'd been dismissed from school, and they said that I couldn't come back to school until I took another test, which was in the summer. And I was going out of the country at that time when the test was being given, and I didn't want to miss my trip. So I started crying and told them that the day that the test was given, my father had died. And I was crying, and they said, that's okay, but we need a note from the funeral home. So while I was crying, I was trying to think of a way how I was going to get a funeral home note while continuing to shed these fake tears. So I thought about it a long time, and my friend Carter made me some funeral home stationery because he worked in a graphic shop on campus. And we forged this, we made up this beautiful funeral home stationery with logos and everything, and my friend wrote this note how my father died, and I got back in school and I went on my trip. That's the end of the story. When I was in 11th grade, I was in a culinary arts class, which is kind of like home ec, but it's, you have an industrial kitchen that you work in. But anyway, there was a rack of pots hanging up, and there was about 6 padlocks laying on the table underneath the pots. And I decided that I'd lock all the pots together through the handles. And I got 3 days of in-school suspension, meaning you sit in a room for 3 days and read. So I got 3 days of in-school suspension for pot locking. That's my claim to fame, is that I'm a pot locker. I think I'm more misunderstood. I don't know, all artists feel misunderstood, so that's like an understatement. I feel very misunderstood as a person, in general. Do you? Only bothers me when it causes, only time I have a problem with is when I'm in a relationship. But I guess that's true for everyone. When it starts causing arguing, if you really look at the film, you can tell that I'm in deep thought about something. I usually am. Usually always obsessed about something. No, I'm a very creative person. I don't think people see that at first. I'm a really heavy thinker. I'm always brooding and thinking about something. And you showed that side of me. I probably appear more secure than I actually am. Maybe more insecure.
One of the things I've always known is you grow up and they tell you don't but judge a book by its cover.
and I got 3 days of in-school suspension. I mean, you sit in a room for 3 days and read. So I got 3 days of in-school suspension for potlocking. That's my claim to fame, is that I'm a potlocker. I think I'm more misunderstood. I don't know, all artists feel misunderstood, so that's like an understatement. I feel very misunderstood as a person, in general. Do you? Only bothers me when it causes, only time I have a problem with is when I'm in a relationship. But I guess that's true for everyone. When it starts causing arguing, if you really look at the film, you can tell that I'm in deep thought about something. I usually am. Usually always obsessed about something. No, I'm a very creative person. I don't think people see that at first. I'm a really heavy thinker. You know, I'm always brooding and thinking about something. And you showed that side of me. I probably appear more secure than I actually am. Maybe more insecure.
One of the things I've always known is you grow up and they tell you don't but judge a book by its cover, but everybody does. Everybody, I mean, they tell you don't judge a book by its cover, but then they also tell you first impressions are lasting impressions. When people see me, I think that they get a much rougher impression than I actually am. That's one of the things that I've come across constantly in my life. I've always had a different look, more or less what some people consider antisocial in different forms. 2 years ago I had colored hair and half my head shaved and wore, basically was a punk. And I think a lot of the reason I did that was just to get reactions out of people. So even though I consider myself to be calmed down these days, as I think all of us do with age, we temper ourselves and find what we want to be. Part of where I was a couple of years ago was I was very, very angry. I really couldn't tell you what I was angry at. I don't think a lot of people know what they're angry at, but I was very angry, and a lot of that came across in my dress and the extreme I went to. I think there was a series of things that happened in my life that I matured, and I'm not so much think it's a maturity of being childish versus being an adult. I think it's more of a maturity of finding out who I really want to be and what I really want to be. Obviously, I think all the shots in here show my fascination with motorcycles. I've been riding motorcycles for several years now and enjoy it a great deal. In fact, so much that I've become a motorcycle mechanic because that's what I have found I wanted to do. I've worked a lot of different jobs and found that a desk job in an office is not for me. So I left a very high-paying desk job to become a mechanic where I make very little money. I think when people first see me, they see what they want to see. And I think that happens to a lot of people. And I know personally I react to that. If you come up to me, it's the first time I've ever met you, and you right away judge me by the way I look, and you think I'm going to be unpleasant, or you think I'm going to be trouble, a lot of times I'll give you that, because I don't really care for... I think people should look beyond societal norms. If somebody is a little bit different, if somebody is different anyway, if they have colored hair, if they have long hair, if they have no hair, if they have tattoos, if they don't have tattoos, people should look beyond that as to what people really are. And I think that's one of the reasons I've always looked the way that I have, because I don't want people to accept me just because of the way I look. I want people to accept me because they know who I am. One of the scenes in this film shows a tattoo on my right arm, and it's a rose that's been wrapped in barbed wire. I've always been a lot nicer than the image that I put off, and if I were to put it metaphorically, without sounding corny, I did it because I think my personality is more like a rose, but I wrap myself in barbed wire.